Disclaimer.
I woke up inside the consequences of my secrets.
My name is Danielle Brooks. I am 39 from Atlanta, Georgia. I died for 16 minutes on August 14th, 2022.
I always tell people that my marriage did not break in one day. It did not explode. It leaked. Quietly. Softly. Secretly. Like a faucet you forget to tighten, dripping one lie at a time. From the outside, we looked steady. My husband, Malcolm, is a quiet man, faithful to routine, faithful to work, faithful to church. And I played the role of the supportive wife, the smiling worship leader, the dependable friend. We were the couple people pointed to with admiration, the couple that looked covered. The couple no one imagined could have cracks forming beneath the foundation. But inside, I was drifting. I cannot tell you the exact day the drift began. But I remember the feeling. I remember waking up beside a man who loved me, yet feeling unseen in a way that scared me. I remember conversations that used to feel warm becoming short, and the silence between us growing longer than the nights we slept through. Somewhere in that silence, I started craving admiration, craving to feel chosen, craving to feel pursued again. That hunger became the door. It started with harmless messages, or at least that is what I told myself. A coworker who noticed my new hairstyle. A man who listened in a way Malcolm no longer did. The compliments were soft, but they landed deep. And slowly, a version of me awakened that I should have buried at the feet of God long before. I started smiling at my phone, lingering over texts, waiting for notifications like they were oxygen. And the worst part? I convinced myself nothing was wrong because nothing physical happened. It is just conversation, I whispered to myself. It is just attention. It is not cheating. But your heart knows what your mouth pretends not to say. Because every emotional seed eventually becomes a spiritual root. The deeper the conversations went, the more distant I became at home. Malcolm began asking gentle questions. Are you okay? Is something on your mind? Did I do something? I always shook my head. I always smiled. I always lied. A lie is a heavy thing, but the silence after a lie is even heavier. I would sit across from him at dinner, feeling the weight of my own hypocrisy press against my ribs. My appetite shrank. My laughter faded. My eyes trained themselves to avoid his. I felt like I was living behind a pane of glass, seeing him, hearing him, but separated by choices I refused to confront. The double life grew roots. Every day I watered it with secrecy. I hid my phone under pillows when I showered, turned the screen face down when he walked into the room, muted notifications, deleted messages, erased call logs. Every time my finger pressed delete, a piece of my integrity disappeared with it. I became emotionally exhausted, not from the marriage, but from managing the lie. Guilt followed me everywhere, into worship services, into staff meetings, into the mirror, especially the mirror. There were nights Malcolm reached for me, and I pulled away with the excuse of being tired. But the truth was that my heart no longer belonged fully to him, and I was terrified that he could feel it. My body was in the home, but my emotions had started visiting another place entirely. A place I had no business being. I began waking up with headaches, falling asleep with tension in my chest, carrying anxiety like a purse slung across my shoulder, never leaving home without it. And the scariest part? I still thought I had it under control. I still believed I could stop whenever I wanted. But sin does not release you because you feel guilty. Sin releases you when you confess. And I was not confessing. I was drowning, quietly. The waters I pretended were shallow. And then came the day everything inside me snapped. I wish I could say the breaking point came at home, that it happened in a place where repentance would have been easier. But sin has a way of exposing you in the exact place where you tried to feel safest. It happened the afternoon I agreed to meet Jordan, the man I had been emotionally tied to for months. We were supposed to just talk, like we always told ourselves. A conversation over coffee, a little laughter, some attention I refused to seek from my husband, but this time it felt different. He had been distant for days. Short replies. Delayed messages. That old panic, The fear of losing something I never should have had tightened around my chest. I wanted to feel chosen again. Just one more time. I drove to the quiet side of town where no one from church would see us. The cafe was dim, warm, and hidden behind tall trees. Exactly the kind of place where secrets felt comfortable. I sat across from him, waiting for the version of him that used to look at me like I was the center of his attention. But he barely looked up from his phone. His smile was thin, his eyes distracted. Something inside me froze. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound calm, but my voice cracked around the edges. He shrugged. "Yeah, just tired." There was a woman's name glowing on his lock screen. Not mine. A hollow ache spread through my stomach. I swallowed. "Who is she?" He laughed softly, avoiding the question. "Do not start. Do not start." The phrase cut deeper than I expected. The man I had risked my marriage for. The man I gave emotional pieces of myself to. The man I lied to my husband for. Was doing to me the very thing I was doing to Malcolm. It was as if God held a mirror to my soul and forced me to see myself with no filter, no excuses, no soft edges. My breath shortened. My fingers trembled. A buzzing grew inside my chest like a swarm of angry bees. Heat flooded my face. Shame, jealousy, guilt, confusion. They all collided at once. I whispered, barely audible, "Jordan, what are we doing?" He sighed. "Danielle, why are you getting emotional? We were never anything serious." The sentence shattered something inside me. He kept talking, but his voice drifted away, distant and underwater. My heart began to pound. Hard, uneven. Like a drum losing its rhythm. I pressed my hand to my chest. "Something is wrong. Jordan, something is wrong." But he was already annoyed. He leaned back, shaking his head. "You are overreacting again. Calm down." The room tilted. The walls bent inward. A wave of dizziness hit me so hard my vision blurred. The air suddenly felt thick, like breathing through wet cloth. I tried to stand, but my legs buckled. Chairs scraped. Someone shouted. I could feel myself falling. Slow, helpless. As if gravity had given up on me. My hearing dimmed into a muffled echo. People rushed toward me, but their faces stretched and smeared like paint melting on a canvas. My chest clenched violently. Pain shot down my left arm. Cold sweat rolled across my back. Jordan knelt beside me. Not out of love, but out of panic. "Danielle. Hey, stay with me, Danielle." His voice cracked, but I was too far away to cling to it. I could taste metal. I could feel my heartbeat stumbling. Slipping. Losing shape. My last coherent thought was not about him. And not even about Malcolm. It was this. "God, I broke what you trusted me with." My body jerked once. Then twice. Then everything slowed. As if someone gently lowered the volume on life. I felt my fingers go numb. My breath thinned to a fragile thread. The ceiling above me darkened around the edges. Voices blurred into a single haunting hum. My heart stuttered. Once. Twice. Then stopped. A cold wave spread through my chest like ink spilling across paper. The cafe lights dimmed into darkness. The world folded inward. Soft. Silent. Final. And in that heavy quietness, just as fear tried to scream one last time, I felt myself slipping out of my body, as if my soul took one step backward, and everything earthly disappeared. And that was the moment I realized I had died. I did not rise from my body, I ripped away from it. One moment I was lying on the cafe floor, my chest refusing to obey me, Jordan's hands shaking around my shoulders. And the next, something inside me snapped loose like a cord pulled too tight. I shot upward, not fast, not slow, but with the awful precision of something no longer belonging to Earth. I looked down and saw myself lying there, my own face slack, my lips drained of color, my fingers curled like they were still trying to hold on to something that had slipped through. The sight made my stomach twist, even though I no longer had one. There is a special kind of terror in watching your own mouth hang open, your own eyes dim, your own soul watching your body instead of living in it. Jordan kept shouting my name, but it was hollow, like he was yelling through a tunnel filled with water. People crowded around, their fear folding into the air. Malcolm was nowhere in sight, and that absence cut deeper than the failing of my heart. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run back inside my body. I wanted to take every text, every lie, every excuse, and tear them out of existence. But my hands passed through my own shoulders like smoke. The room began to fade, thinning like fog pulled by a breeze I could not feel. Voices stretched. Lights pulsed. And then everything peeled away. A warmth curled around my ankles first, climbing my legs like liquid silk. Not burning. Not soothing. Just heavy. As if the atmosphere itself had weight and knew my name. I drifted downward, slow at first, then with a kind of reluctant surrender. Not falling. Being drawn. The darkness below was not black. It was a deep, breathing red. The color of regret pressed into fabric. The color of truth when it finally stops waiting politely for you to notice it. My feet touched ground, if I could call it that. It shifted under me like molten glass barely cooled, flexing with each step as though it remembered every moment I pretended not to. Heat rose. Not a fire scorch, but the ache of shame warming the skin. It felt like standing too close to the truth. My wedding ring glowed, a soft but undeniable red. It pulsed in a slow rhythm, like a heartbeat made of warning. Each pulse tugged at a part of me I had buried under months of excuses. I lifted my hand, and the ring responded, threads of thin red light rising from it, woven with phrases I once spoke at an altar. Vows. My vows. But they were frayed, unraveling. Turning into small, delicate chains that draped across my arm with the intimacy of something that had been waiting quietly to be acknowledged. My breath caught, or something like breath. This place had air, but it tasted like memory. Then the bed appeared. Not the bed Jordan and I sat near. Not the bed I shared with Malcolm. Something older. Something symbolic. It floated before me, its frame glowing faintly, its sheets smoldering like they were stitched from disappointment. Every crack in the wood leaked a red shimmer from beneath, as if the bed itself was revealing the fractures I refused to admit existed. A low sound filled the space, not a scream, not crying, just a hum of infinite sorrow. A sound that felt like someone remembering a heartbreak over and over, without the relief of forgetting. Scrolls drifted around me, their edges curling in slow flame. Names faded in and out. Mine brightened, dimmed, brightened, then flickered like a candle losing confidence. A shadow stepped forward. Not a being. A choice. It was the version of me who answered that first message with too much excitement. Her silhouette looked just like mine, but her posture was different, leaning forward, reaching for validation like it was water in a desert. Another shadow appeared beside her. Jordan. Only not Jordan, just the shape of him, the idea of him. The version I created in my mind. The version who made me feel seen but never covered. He stood there, the glow of his phone reflecting off where his face should have been. When he turned, I saw the name of another woman flicker across his shadow's hand. A rush of humiliation hit me so hard it felt physical. My knees buckled. The world pulsed. The air thickened until it felt like guilt was pressing down on my shoulders with invisible hands. I tried to speak. My voice cracked like paper burning. I did not mean for it to become this. The realm answered. A chain slipped around my wrist, soft but secure. Not punishment. Recognition. The molten walkway shifted beneath me, its glow intensifying with each heartbeat I no longer had. The ground seemed to breathe, inhale when I remembered something, exhale when denial tried to return. Memories began to hover, sharper now. The night I hid my phone under a pillow. The morning I told Malcolm I was fine while my heart beat for someone else. The day I wore a dress not for my husband, but for attention I should never have pursued. Each memory pulled tighter at the chain. Each one whispered its own accusation. Each one demanded to be acknowledged in the raw language of consequence. My legs trembled. My mind trembled harder. I pressed my hands to my head, shaking, breath stuttering, heart, if I had one here, pounding against my ribs in phantom echoes. God, please. The words barely escaped. Please. The red light around me deepened until it felt like the entire realm was leaning in, listening, waiting, preparing to show me something I had avoided all my life. And just as the first tearless sob tore through my chest, just as the weight became too much, the world in front of me cracked with a soft, echoing sound, as if the truth itself had decided it was time to break open. The crack in the air widened, slow, glowing, deliberate, like the world was tearing open not to punish me, but to expose me. Light spilled through it, not white, but a fierce, pulsing red that carried the weight of every vow I broke. It washed over my skin like heat from an open furnace. Though it did not burn, it revealed. It stripped. It showed me the parts of myself I spent years pretending were small, harmless, manageable. A memory surged forward, projected in front of me like a living portrait. I watched myself on the couch late at night, phone glowing against my cheek, smiling at a message I should not have answered. I saw the exact second I made the unspoken decision to hide it from Malcolm. My shadow self leaned in, her shoulders curling inward with anticipation, with thrill, with the ache of being admired by someone who did not carry my covenant. The walkway beneath me groaned low, resonant. A small tremor rippled under my feet, as if the ground itself recoiled at the replay of my betrayal. Another memory forced its way out. The Sunday morning when Malcolm reached for my hand in church, and I pulled away because I felt guilty, not because he did anything wrong. He thought I was tired. He thought I was overwhelmed. But the truth was simple. I was giving pieces of myself to someone I had no covenant with. A chain tightened around my wrist, slowly, softly, but unmistakably. It pulsed with a heavy rhythm, as if counting every secret I ever kept. "Stop," I whispered, but the realm did not stop. The realm had waited too long for the truth. The cafe scene returned, sharper now. Jordan leaned back, bored, distant, his shadow checking a message from another woman. I saw the exact moment my face fell, the raw sting of being replaced by the same behavior I used to replace my husband. The red glow intensified. Heat wrapped around my skin like guilt turned into atmosphere. I wanted to look away. I begged myself to look away. But my eyes were pinned open by something divine, something that wanted me to understand the full weight of what I had done. Then the marriage bed shifted. It cracked down the center with a slow moan, the embers beneath it glowing brighter, as if the very ground mourned what should have been sacred. A voice, soft but filled with authority, rose from the glowing fracture. "You touched what was not yours." It was not accusation. It was truth. "You gave your heart to another while calling your home a sanctuary." The words struck my chest like gentle thunder. I tried to breathe, but breath had no meaning here. Only truth did. Another chain slipped around my other wrist. Not metal. Light, yet heavy as regret. "You tore the fabric of your covenant and pretended the threads were unimportant." The scroll with my name unfurled itself midair. The ink of my vow bled, darkening, then fading. As if the promise I made years ago had been gasping for air. The presence grew closer, though I still could not see a face. Only light. Only authority. Only the whisper of holiness that made every excuse in me wither. The voice was not loud. It did not need to be. What you fed in secret became the shadow that followed you here. My legs buckled. I collapsed to my knees, the molten walkway flexing under the impact. Heat surged around me, not scorching, but suffocating in its symbolism. I did not mean. The words choked out of me like stones. I did not mean to lose myself like this. A warmth brushed my cheek, gentle, sorrowful. "You meant to feel desired. And in choosing it, you surrendered the integrity I entrusted to you." The truth hit harder than any fire. Harder than the collapse in the cafe. Harder than the shock of seeing my own body lying on the floor. Because here, there was no hiding. No pretending. No soft explanations. I felt myself folding inward, shaking, undone by my own longing for validation. The realm shifted again. Shadows moved around me, representations of every moment I let my emotions wander outside the marriage God gave me. Each one knelt beside the glowing cracks in the bed, whispering reminders of choices I thought were small. I clutched my glowing chains, weeping without tears. "Please." My voice wavered. "Please." I understand now. I understand. A hand of pure light touched my shoulder. Understanding is not enough, Danielle. The ground beneath me partway opened, revealing a deeper glow. Not fire, but consequence. And then the voice delivered the three truths that shattered me. You broke your own heart in pursuit of what was never meant for you. You wounded what I gave you to protect. Yet mercy waits for the one who finally surrenders. The chains loosened, just a little. The bed's crack stopped widening. The scroll's flame paused. The light around me softened, as if the realm itself inhaled, and prepared to show me the final revelation. The molten walkway brightened beneath my knees. The shadows straightened. The entire atmosphere held its breath. And then, the truth that would change everything began to rise before me. I felt the realm shift before I understood what was happening. The red glow that once pressed against my skin began to peel away in thin layers, like a curtain lifting. The chains around my wrists trembled, quivering as if they sensed something changing in the atmosphere. The molten walkway stopped its slow ripple. Even the marriage bed, cracked and glowing like a wound, stilled its sorrowful pulse. Everything paused. Then light, white, gentle, alive, broke through the red like dawn-piercing smoke. It poured over me in soft waves, and for a moment I felt weightless again, the same way I felt when I separated from my body. But this weightlessness was different. It did not strip me. It lifted me. A whisper moved through the air, steady, warm, unmistakable. Return. The word wrapped around me, and I felt something in my chest lurch. Not pain. A pull. As if heaven itself had reached inside and tugged me toward life. The realm dimmed. Its colors softened. The shadows lowered their heads. The bed drew back, its embers dying to a dull glow. The scroll rolled itself closed as though my story was not finished. Return, the voice repeated, firmer, closer. The chains broke. Not shattered, but released. They fell through my hands like threads of melted light, dissolving before they touched the ground. A wind, cool, bright, swept beneath me, lifting me upward. The molten walkway sank into mist. Red faded to black. Black opened into a blinding field of white. And then I fell. Not with fear. With finality. I slammed into my body like someone trying to fit into a space too tight. My chest seized. My back arched. A scream of breath tore up my throat. Gasps. Shouts. Hands grabbing my arms, my shoulders, my face. Someone cried out, "She's back, she's breathing." The room spun in violent circles, lights streaking across my vision. I felt myself choke, a desperate, raw gasp that scraped my lungs as if dragging me out of the grave. My eyes flew open. The world looked too bright, too loud, too real. Jordan's face hovered above me, pale and horrified, but the sight of him struck me like ice. I recoiled, instinctively, violently. As if touching him again might drag me back to the place I had just escaped. I pushed his hands away with a trembling whisper. "Do not touch me." Paramedics lifted me, strapped my body, checked vitals, asked questions I barely heard. My mind was somewhere else, still kneeling on the molten walkway, still hearing the truth echo through a chamber of red light. In the ambulance, my body shook so hard the stretcher rattled. I curled my fingers inward, half expecting to still see the residue of chains. But only skin remained cold, damp, trembling. For the first time in months, I called Malcolm's name. Not in frustration, not in habit, but in need. He met me at the hospital, eyes swollen, voice cracked, hands shaking. He looked at me like a man trying to hold on to something slipping through his fingers. I opened my mouth to speak, and everything inside me broke loose at once. "Malcolm, I am sorry." The words collapsed out of me like a confession that had waited too long. "I have not been faithful to you. My heart, my attention. I gave it away. I broke us. I broke you. I broke what God gave me to protect." My voice dissolved. I folded forward, sobbing without elegance or restraint. My body shook as though the chains still hung there, reminding me of every vow I betrayed. He stared at me, hurt, stunned, breathing through pain I caused with my own hands. His silence was heavier than hell. But then he stepped closer, gripping the sides of my arms with a gentleness I did not deserve. "Danielle, you almost died," he whispered. "You almost died without telling me the truth." His voice cracked on the last word. I nodded, unable to lift my face. I know. You hurt me," he said. His words trembled, but they did not lash out. "You hurt me, but I am not losing you tonight." I collapsed into him, shaking so violently I could barely stand. And for the first time since the emotional affair began, I felt the real weight of what I had done, not just to him, but to myself, to God, to the covenant I treated like borrowed clothing. Recovery was not fast. Repentance does not erase damage. There were nights Malcolm slept in another room. There were days he barely looked at me without tears gathering in his eyes. There were conversations that felt like surgery, necessary, invasive, painful. I blocked Jordan, deleted accounts, cut off every tie, every thread, every doorway. I gave Malcolm my passwords, my phone, my transparency, even when it burned my pride down to ash. I forgot to add for months he was distant and cold, but I think he decided to give us another chance. But repentance is not the proof. Consistency is. I prayed with a desperation I had never known. I returned to the altar with empty hands and a trembling heart. I let God rebuild the parts of me that had been warped by longing and loneliness. And piece by slow piece, I rebuilt my covenant. Some damage healed. Some scars remained. But scars tell the truth. And for the first time, I was living in truth again. There are moments I still feel a faint echo of the molten walkway beneath my feet. Moments when my wedding ring grows warm, not physically, but in memory. Moments when I hear the whisper. What you feed in secret becomes the shadow that waits for you. That line reshaped me. Because hell is not only a place of flames. Hell is the part of you that God reveals when your truth is finally stripped bare. And to whoever is watching this, listening to this, searching for reasons to justify the secret path you are on, hear me clearly. Marriage is not destroyed by storms. It is destroyed by the tiny hidden choices you think nobody sees. Until heaven shows you what they cost. If my story shook you, if it woke something in you, if it made you reconsider the path you are walking, then stay close. Join me here. Share this message with someone who needs warning before regret becomes a realm they cannot escape. Subscribe if this testimony reaches you. And tell me where you are watching from. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the next truth God will reveal through this journey. My name is Danielle Brooks, and I am alive because mercy met me in the place my secrets should have destroyed me.